Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Stranger Things Season 5. I need you to fight one last time. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin. And if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, gaming, and all things Geekcentric. And this is our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Stranger Things Season 5. Joining me for today's spoiler-filled discussion are my ride or die party members for this journey through the Upside Down. If Stranger Things has taught us anything, it's that you don't survive monsters, alternate dimensions, or the end of the world without the right people at your side. And these two have been with me through every campaign, every theory, every emotional hit this series has thrown at us. Darcy Hudson, Nate Shelton, how you boys doing?
I mean, I was going to say suck my fat one, but after that loving sort of intro there, I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, you suck my fat one.
Think more delightful, Derek.
There we go. Yes. Less dipshit
Delightful,
Derek.
Justin.
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited to dig into this. This is a long time coming. This this episode and this discussion, and I'm excited. This is also our first time recording this
First
year.
episode of 2026.
First episode of 2026.
Yeah, not exactly what I thought would be the first episode for our channel, but you know what? Nonetheless, here we are. It's January 2nd, and we're recording this. Yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Now, before we get into anything else, this is your official spoiler warning. Okay, from this point on, we are discussing the entire final season and the full series finale of Stranger Things. That means ending character arcs, big swings, quiet moments. Nothing is off the table. So if you haven't finished the series yet and you somehow found yourself here, this is your chance to pause, finish it, sit with it, cry a little, do whatever you want, and then come back and join us for this conversation. Now, look, Stranger Things has been a part of our lives for nearly a decade. We've watched these kids grow up, literally, from tighty whities and bowl cuts. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. The stakes have gotten bigger. The world expanded far beyond what we could have even imagined back in season 1. You know, this final season wasn't just about wrapping up a story. It was about how you end something this beloved, this massive, and also this culturally important. So let's start kind of talking about the big picture. And I want to start that with one of the most creative choices this season made was how it was released. Instead of a traditional full binge, we had timed, staggered drops across multiple days, which is not how most of us usually experience Stranger Things. It was always usually a dump. I think even with Volume 4, there was a bit of a sort of a staggered, time staggered thing. It was the first iteration of that to kind of create momentum. So let's start there. Like, did the release schedule change how you experienced this final season? Like, did it, did it break up how it builds tension? Did they give you time to process moments, or did it just mess up the momentum for you entirely? Darcy, we'll start with you.
I mean, it's weird to think about because, again, that first season was kind of what instilled a whole binge mentality almost, I feel like, when streaming was just getting popular. This was Netflix's biggest thing at the time. So to have them go from that strategy now to this, again, broken up one, it was a weird change. And again, it is not what you're used to when getting to Stranger Things, even if you had season 4 to kind of adapt to the 2-chunk schedule. But I kind of like the idea of it. It's kind of going back to that idea of, weekly TV when you have time to talk about past episodes with people, and it gives you time to catch up, and you're not stressing about watching 8 episodes in one day so you don't get anything spoiled. So I do think there is benefits to it, but I will say it is not the Stranger Things I'm used to. Again, I didn't like it before. I wasn't the biggest fan of it this time around either.
I agree with you, Darcy, in the sense of like the getting the chance to sort of like join together and talk about this in between volumes. I think the biggest problem for me with the release strategy was just when it was released. And I think,
Yes.
just in the sense of releasing it over the holidays, it's tough for, some of our favorite content creators to create content. We're even a little bit late because we wanted to party on New Year's instead of just kind of jumping right into this. And so we kind of, experience these episodes at different times. I know throughout the holidays, I was, after volume one, okay, have you seen all of volume one? Okay, we can talk about it. But, two other people in the room haven't seen it yet. So they've, they have to go and not listen to us in this moment. So you're kind of like talking over in little groups between your friends. And so I just think that honestly, I just would have loved if they could have kept the same release schedule, just at a different point in time, even if they wanted to maybe just do it, pre Christmas and then post New Year's, on the 2nd or the 3rd or what have you. But that said, I did enjoy some of the theorizing that was going on, and getting to do that one more time for this series was kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's pluses and negatives to the release strategy, but I actually want to really give credit to Netflix for the release strategy. And I wasn't a big fan of the dates that they chose, but it really didn't stop anyone. The way Netflix eventized this final run really worked for, I think, the fan experience first. You mentioned the content creators and stuff, and that's nice, but like at the end of the day, it's really about the fan experience. And I think that's who it really worked for in a lot of ways. I do agree, maybe the dates that they picked for like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's is not necessarily the best, but it didn't stop people. There were like record numbers for streaming,
multiple crashes of Netflix.
Exactly, right? So spreading
sure.
the season out really did, as you guys are mentioning, it created anticipation, discussion, speculation in a way that felt intentional, almost like appointment viewing, like you were mentioning, Darcy. It does feel like we are kind of getting to a Netflix version of that, because you're right. They are the binge culture. They pretty much coined that experience, right? So this is different for them. Even the fact that the finale played in the theater, which did banging numbers, $25 million, all for theater revenue, and now it's being reported that Netflix might consider keeping movies in for 17 days of in-theater experience, which is still not long enough. But, the fact that they even went that far to put the finale in the theater, that's great. Now, did that conversation always skew positive, when we're talking about, these, moments between volume 1 and volume 2? No, but people are talking, the theories and the debates and the discourse are there. That's part of what made Stranger Things such a phenomenon in the first place, is just that constant discussion. Even when fans were frustrated, they were engaged. And in today's streaming landscape, that kind of sustained conversation is rare, right? For people to really, kind of get behind certain things and not focus on other stupid things that really shouldn't be a focus of why an episode is bad. But for a finale of this scale, making it feel like an event, it felt earned in a lot of ways. So I do think that the strategy worked to a certain degree. It's just a matter of, I guess, when, as you said, maybe the dates should be different next time.
And I mean, I get it. Like, I understand people are off, work, and they have the ability, but at the same time, I want to spend time with my family. Not all of my family, is sitting down on Christmas Day watching Stranger Things.
Hey, I appreciated the finale being on my birthday. I really did. I didn't get to watch it on my birthday, but I appreciate the fact that they wanted to put it on my birthday as
they
a
did it
present for me.
Yeah,
they did it for me. They knew it, right? Like, so,
I think, again, they're trying to go towards that, again, weekly viewing, go all the way and release it weekly, because those breaks between uneven volumes really felt like that between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It felt like dead space, because like you talked about it for a week, and then it's just, you've kind of done all the theorizing and talking you can do, because at that point you're just waiting for what's next. And it was such a large gap that it wasn't the same as the weekly viewing. And so you got that burst of it, but then it kind of faded away, and then you forgot about it until it was the holidays, and it was other things took priority. So yeah, it was just a weird timing thing, I in my opinion.
For sure. And I like the note there about like there's a lull, right? Because it really did feel like there was a lot of conversation between volume 1 and volume 2. And then like, thankfully, and that was a big gap of time, right? We're talking Thanksgiving in the States to, American Thanksgiving to Christmas. And there's just a lot of conversation in and around what to anticipate for volume 2. So let's move now to talking about like sort of the scale and structure of this final season. They, as we were mentioning, they went big, multiple locations, overlapping storylines. Almost every character the show has that has ever really kind of been introduced and that is alive, played some kind of role, and at times it was epic, at times it felt dense. So let's talk about that structure. Did you guys feel like this final season was very focused, or did you feel like it was juggling too much? And with that, were there moments that were where the scale worked against the emotional storytelling, or did it earn that scope because of how long we've been with these characters?
I think it's a bit of column A, column B. I think that, I think both answers are correct, that it did earn, and also felt at times throughout the season that we were kind of repeating, even episode to episode, certain points and certain sort of story beats and moments. There were a lot of epiphanies. There was a lot of exposition, a lot of plans, and some scenes kind of felt like the same scenes over again. Now, that doesn't mean that I wasn't enjoying myself. I definitely was. But I get what you mean in terms of having such a large cast of characters. There's so much to sort of go from point A to point B. And yet at the same time, it also felt like maybe we didn't need this many episodes to go from point A to point B. Like there was a lot to sort of go through and explain, but could that have been tightened up? Could that have been done in maybe a few less aha moments that have been memed and made fun of on social media throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
I think it is a very realistic thing to say that this season could have been shorter, even given its scale. But that said, I still enjoyed every single time I would, go on these adventures with these characters. But to that, again, it's like there were definitely moments where I'm like, okay, I feel like we just did this. And I felt that a few too many times this season in comparison to previous experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those aha moments that you're talking about and stuff like that. Again, I enjoy them, and if you look back, watching those early seasons, a lot of those aha moments happen throughout the series. But when you're coming to the end and need to tie a nice bow on a lot of these characters' arcs, when you've introduced so many, I can understand it being like, hey, with everyone needs to have closure, but that kind of spreads it a bit thin. But I did enjoy the way they managed to break the characters up and have them doing stuff. Again, it feels like these kids have grown up in the darkest of times and have learned to fight the truest evil and the greatest horrors one can imagine. So seeing them finally like band together with the adults, and like they are outsmarting the American military, which again, this makes sense. And it's the 80s. Of course, no one's gonna believe a bunch of kids that are running around at first. And now that they're teenagers, they're just like, okay, if you're not gonna believe us, we'll do something ourselves. So I love that mentality of it. And just the whole like fight against the system thing that was going on this whole season was pretty cool to me.
And to that point, I think even within something like the finale and having, you've got, what was it, Hopper, 11, Callie, and Murray. You know what I mean? Like the three of those make sense. Murray doesn't necessarily make sense, but at a season 5, it definitely does, right? And so there were a few, like you said, Darcy, absolutely. There was definitely a few pairings and sort of offshoots that maybe in previous seasons might have felt a little unbelievable, but here completely makes sense.
Yeah, we're at the end. I think season 5 started off incredibly strong with volume 1, like right out of the gate. The energy was there, the stakes were clear, and that reveal with Will developing powers was a massive like fuck yeah moment, and that just reframed everything we thought we knew about his role in the story, and moving forward, it excited me for what was to come. Volume 2, however, felt like its own its own kind of wormhole. You know what I mean? It wasn't bad, but it definitely felt like a bridge from volume 1 to the finale. And a lot of the time was spent moving, pieces into place, explaining plans and positioning characters so that the finale could actually work the way it does. And at times it felt more functional rather than emotional. And don't get me wrong, there are some actual decent moments within volume 2 that do kind of hit, but those were far and few. It just really did feel like this volume 2 was meant to kind of set up for the finale more than anything else, which I guess that's what it was for. And like the show was making sure like basically all of the chess pieces were exactly where they needed to be. And I get that. And it pays off with the finale. Like, and that's where just, it all clicks. The payoff is huge. It brings everything together in a way that feels earned, emotional, undeniably epic. The scale is massive. The moments are big, and it delivers on the promise of that this ending, what the ending was hyped to be, like, you know, very epic in scale, right? So like there are flaws across the season, and I think a lot of that might be stinted by how we moved through each of these volumes, but absolutely in the end it sticks to landing, and that's what I think matters, right? In regards to the overall experience.
Again, I think Volume Two's biggest like setback is the fact that that's when they decide to explain everything outright. Where
Yeah,
we have now learned exactly what's going on in this world, and it's not just
correct.
magic. It is just this is exactly what is happening, what the end goal is. So it was a lot of just setting up what was to come for that again, that awesome finale that did pay off a lot of these season or series long mysteries and stuff like that, and just again the payoff for a lot of these characters and the scale like you're talking about. It felt
Mhm.
like a proper send off to what was a fantastic sci-fi and horror series. So yeah, I really enjoyed how it got there. Not so much, but when it got there, it was so good.
Yeah, I enjoyed where we got with the
Yeah,
finale. Maybe how we got there was a little messy, a little clunky. To your point, Nate, a little repetitive at times, but I think that finale it did matter. It did stick out.
And I think getting answers, it matters how we get those answers, right? And I think
Sure. Yeah.
episode 4 of volume 1 did a great job of showing and not telling, right? The finale does a great job of showing and not necessarily telling too much, especially in the way that it ends. And I love that. And we'll obviously talk about that. But I think, I do think, yeah, that middle chunk, you're absolutely right, Darcy, you nailed it. It's how they go about sort of revealing things over and over and over again, that for a mystery
It's the
show,
dump. Yeah.
right? It's like we have to quickly get there, and yeah, I don't know. It's weird. There's moments even throughout this conversation where I'm like, there were too many episodes, and now there weren't enough, and you know what I mean. It's just, again, I think it matters very much how we get there,
yeah.
and that definitely stands out for sure.
I think they really wanted to be clear in what they were setting up with like what the whole story was. So that's probably why they spent so long telling us, because as opposed to showing, which could be the open to interpretation, if they're more literal with it, we can't. There's no holes for us to poke through, I
Mhm.
guess, is their mentality.
Well, you guys have been talking about some of these characters that we get to interact with and experience throughout this final season. And quick preface before we jump into this is a massive ensemble cast, and not everyone can be front and center in this final season like this. But that said, for you guys, who stood out to you the most this season? Was there any characters that felt essential to the finale? Anyone who surprised you, or just anyone that maybe even didn't surprise you? Was maybe their surprise was bad, if you will. And then is there anyone that deserved more time? Just of this cast. I know I gave you a list there, but just some food for thought, of course.
I mean, I think a standout for me throughout this entire season, especially in this back half, definitely is Nancy Wheeler. She had just some of the most badass moments. I mean, shout out to her mom, Karen. We see where she gets it from. I think the
For
laundry
sure.
moment was so phenomenal with her. But I think Nancy this season, just we got such a good sort of ending for her, a great well-rounded arc, and we just got to see her kick ass. The hair was incredible, and just walking
Ripley
around,
inspired.
the
Yeah.
Ripley inspired hair, right? And walking around with just all these guns. I absolutely adore that she's still, even though she's given her little brother a gun finally, it's a flare gun, like just all these little things
It still
about
did
her.
damage.
It's still, listen, it was still very important. It still chipped
Yeah.
away some chip damage, but no, I think Nancy was a really big standout this season, and I adored how they sort of, because I think with all these, young adult series, and this is still technically a young adult series, right? We always have to have a love triangle. We always have to have a will they, won't they? And I just love that it was like, nah, she's just doing her own thing, and it's
For sure.
awesome. And it just fits the character so well. Ever since season 1, it felt like that was her trajectory, and yeah, she was definitely a standout for me this season.
Yeah, I think the biggest standout for me from her character throughout this entire show is breaking the mold from what might be conventional in 1985 to 89 of a woman's role and what their responsibility is, and really going for independence, right? And being her own person. And Natalia Dyer just embraces all of that in her demeanor, in her attitude, even the quiet moments, right? Like just the way she portrays Nancy, incredible work this season. It was so good, so good. Darcy, how about for you? Any standouts?
I mean, this season she was a recast for this season, but Nell Fisher's Holly Wheeler was so integral to this story and did such a good job of serving as that bridge to between the kids who are trapped and the kids who have been through this before. So yeah, just the levels of stuff she goes to, and the way she acts off whoever she's with, whether it's Sadie Sink or Cara Buono, she's working off them so well, and it fits, and it makes sense. Again, I loved her performance throughout this season.
Well, I mean, even getting to see Holly, the heroic, come into that role, right? And especially in the finale, and I think the idea of her taking after a character like Max, and even when we had the opportunity to interview Sadie Sink, and she brought up the idea of like, Max didn't really get to have that relationship with her own brother, and so to kind of see that here and have this sort of like mini relationship between, again, a character like Max and Mike and Nancy's sister, it's like, it's not necessarily the first two characters you would put together, and so again, I think this season giving them the opportunity to do that was really, really lovely, and yeah, she was definitely a standout as well, for sure.
Yeah, because Max is a hard ass, right? Like she's tough, and that's because of Billy. And as she mentioned in your interview with her, it's nice to see another side of Max that's a little bit more empathetic, that is a little bit more understanding, that isn't so tough around the edges, and that comes in the sort of mentoring of Holly. And Nell is like you mentioned, Darcy. She kind of is very integral, especially in this finale, to kind of be her own hero, like you mentioned, Nate, like to help lead the kids through. Like she already did it with Max, so she was very equipped and ready. She knew what she needed to do, because in that moment when they all just started puffing away, right, she was like, okay, well, it's on to me, right? So let's get this thing going. And she really came in, and yeah, I think you've talked about, Nate, like kid actors and younger actors who step into the role, they might lean into being a little more juvenile. I think for Nell Fisher, I think she's surrounded by so many uh adults, if you will, or people that are playing more grown up than they probably are by age. She also portrayed that in a really genuine way, and I think it worked for this entire season, and it helped for us as an audience to have empathy and want to see her succeed and get out of there.
I want to jump in and talk about Robin this season.
Yeah,
I think if we're talking about characters who are having such a huge impact on other characters, I think Robin this season was incredible, and her relationship with Will, and sort of just being there to kind of help him through his experience. And it just, the payoff between those two characters, the silent look that she shares with him as he's coming out, is just incredible. I think she did such a good job in this season, and yeah, I think she really came into her own. She really came into, I think in previous seasons we were still trying to figure it out, and this season it felt like a very confident Robin, and I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, yeah. I loved the growth that we saw from her character. But connecting to that, you mentioned Will Byers and Noah. I was genuinely happy to see Noah just finally get his time to shine, like as an actor in this show.
Hmm.
Will has always been the emotional backbone of this series, and has always been the emotional backbone of this season, of this series. But this season has allowed him to really step forward in more of an active, meaningful way, and I think Noah delivered a very layered, a very emotional but yet restrained performance that felt honest and truthfully like long overdue. You know what I mean? Like the guy hasn't really done much, and now he's here at this point of where he's really integral. And like it felt so genuine, and it was incredibly satisfying to see Will play such a crucial role in sort of the end game after spending so much of the series sort of reacting and being fearful and kind of being pushed to the side while other things were going on in this world. So it was nice to see him kind of be up front, and I really am glad the Duffer Brothers made that decision to do that.
Yeah, for sure. He was incredible this season. Again, bringing his character's arc like full circle to this point, and facing his fears head on, like he does in the finale, and or like getting into the finale, and then just how he uses that now that he's freed. Basically, was
Hmm.
really cool. And just again, like I said, long overdue. Like again, this
Yeah.
is a you said he the first season he was lost, the second season he was being used as a tool, and that after that he's being protected, and like now he's standing on his own and is a true, like he's
Mhm.
fighting alongside these people instead of being protected by them. So it was really cool to see this character finally make that journey. And again, when he's using his powers, it's just it's badass moments, like
He
both
looks
times he uses them.
sick.
Oh
He
yeah,
looks sick, man. He looks so good. He looked like a superhero. It was pretty
yeah,
cool. It was pretty cool.
I want to bring up probably. I mean, I think he's my favorite character in the show, which is Dustin.
oh yeah,
Dustin, and I really loved the Dustin and Steve relationship this season. I
yeah.
think it was really, really lovely, and I think in the sense of the entire thing with Eddie, and sort of just kind of getting a better understanding for how that affected Dustin so much this season. We really do get to see him going through so many different, a couple stages of grief, and he's very angry, he's very frustrated, and you can see that in his character. He's so hardened and pointed at the beginning of this season, and so to see him come all the way through that, to see us get to that center, and having some of those moments of Steve about to die, or the fake out of Steve, and just them embracing afterwards. Dustin was such a phenomenal sort of through point for this season as well, and I think they gave him a really, really great ending as well.
Yeah, I think Gaten Matarazzo absolutely crushed it this season. I think Dustin felt like you were describing. He felt like he was on a mission. He was carrying the weight of grief, loss, and the responsibility in a way that felt noticeably more mature than the past seasons. Like of all the characters, he felt like of all the original characters, it did feel like you could see a level of maturity in Dustin, and maybe in Gatton's performance, right? Like in the way he was, Dustin, and you could really see how much Eddie's death changed him.
Hmm.
There's this quiet strength to Dustin this time around, and Gayton played it flawlessly. He balanced humor, heart, pain. He was also the source of information, and he never ever tipped too far into one direction. But when he did, he still delivered, right? Like when him and Steve have that altercation, it was so raw and it felt so authentic. Like it almost felt like Joe Keery was caught off guard by Gayton's performance, like almost like, whoa, like he's really going into it. So for me, this was easily one of the strongest performances of the season, and in one of the most emotionally grounded. It just felt incredibly human from Gayton. So applauding him for all of that.
Well, to think that Gayton is now, Joe Keery's age when Joe Keery started on this
Started.
series, right? It's
Yeah.
just such a wonderful full circle thing for the actors, for the characters. I think with Dustin, there definitely are a lot of funny moments, but I got to bring up another newcomer with Derek. Suck my fat one is an all timer moment. I know we're not necessarily on moments just yet, but I think Derek was really great this season, and just sort of a fun little additional foil in the ways that we've seen from previous characters who kind of have grown into becoming bigger characters, like Erica. I think is another really, really great standout this season.
Yeah, I absolutely love Erica Sinclair. I believe her name
fantastic sweater, by the way.
Yeah, Priya. Is it Priya Ferguson? If I'm pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
I wanted more of her, to be honest. I thought she should have been in this, and that's totally a compliment. She continues to just be hilarious, sharp, endlessly charismatic, and I think every time Erica was on screen, she just brought an energy and confidence that was just genuinely great to see her just stepping up, helping, and being a part of the team. I think I would have liked to have seen her do a little bit more. She was active, don't get me wrong, but I think, again, I'm happy with the amount as well, to a certain degree, because at least they didn't sideline her like I think some other characters, like just while I'm on this tangent of like characters, I do think Joyce, like, she has a moment in this finale which is incredible, but I think throughout the season she kind of felt like she was a little, like she just kind of was there and not there, sort of thing. And there was a long period of time in this finale where I was like, Darcy and I were watching, I'm like, where the fuck is Joyce? He's like, oh no, she's with the Abyss. She's there. Oh no, yeah, there she is. Will. Yeah, no, she's there.
Dude, for real, there were so many moments where I was like, is Joyce? Are Joyce and Will even? Where are they?
Yeah.
Okay, there they are.
And then she has that incredible moment, and we'll talk about. But like, that in itself, like, is an example of maybe a character that kind of weans in and out of stories. Is there anyone though that like maybe like you kind of were surprised, but you didn't get a little bit more love or anything like
that? I think it's interesting. I think Callie was an interesting sort of addition this season. I literally wrote in my notes when she died that I was just like, I wrote, huh, because she's like, this is where my story was always meant to end. And there's something I want to talk about. I'm sure we all want to talk about in regards to Callie in that moment when we do get to talking about it. But I think there was it was a big reveal for sort of not a ton going on, but maybe it was very intentional that she was a little bit more in the background. But I don't know. There was just so many moments where I was just kind of like, and Callie is just there kind of feeling in some of these sequences. And maybe she should have been maybe brought into the season a little bit later than she was. And maybe that would have made a little more sense. But I don't know. I think for me, there was a little bit of a letdown there for sure.
I think another character for me that just felt maybe, she was utilized great in the finale. And I think she kind of like, again, just kind of weaved in. I would have liked to have seen more of her story is Max. Like, I think Max gets a good amount of time. Yes. And I think we were talking about this yesterday, Darcy, but like, the opportunity to kind of really flesh out a connection between, Max and Vecna or Henry and Billy, there was just something there that I think was on the table that probably wasn't necessarily explored because it would have sucked up so much time out of it. But Sadie Sink is incredible in this season, like absolutely top notch. And I loved seeing her get out of that goddamn coma, because I think even when she was stuck in the sort of in Henry's mind, her character was a little contained, but as soon as she came out and then she went into sort of joining Callie and 11, you saw that Max come back, and I was just like, yeah, that's the Max that I remember. And yeah, I think that she was fantastic. I would have loved to have seen maybe her come out of that coma a little bit sooner rather than later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, it makes sense with her story. Like, again, being trapped in the mind, you're not going to get out of that and then join the fight immediately. Your body does suffered after those 2 years or whatever it was.
I mean, I don't even know if she fully chose to come back into the. You know what I mean? She was kind of brought back in by 11 and Callie, which I was a little confused by.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for
no,
sure.
I totally agree with you for sure.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just thinking like maybe have volume 2 had begun with her getting out of that coma. Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than sort of in the middle of volume 2 is probably it. But again, I can specifically criticize as much as I want, but at the end of the day, I'm not the writer. I didn't, there's probably a better reason as to why that was made. But yeah, she was fantastic as well though, regardless of how much time.
Well, and to this writing team's credit, I mean, even in this discussion, I'm looking at where we are in our discussion, and I like to keep an eye on the clock, and it's very difficult because we love to talk about this stuff as much as possible. But even myself, I'm like, crap. Okay, who haven't I talked about? Who should I give more time to talk about? I will say, I think Lucas was very much a character that was tied to Max in this season. And, again, I think all of these characters
they have a beautiful moment, though.
One or two beautiful moments on their own, but definitely, I think the same way that you're saying Max was a little more front-loaded this season, I think Lucas was a little more front-loaded this season, and it felt like the back half of the season wasn't as much of sort of moments for Lucas or Lucas to be his own character without her. That said, I'm kind of okay with that too. But
yeah,
sure.
Again,
well, like
so
I
many
said,
characters, if you try and tell a bunch of stories at one time, it's going to be very convoluted and confusing. So if you shift those around to give, okay, these characters get payoff earlier and then give these characters payoff later, it makes sense in terms of breaking it up, I guess.
Okay, last thing I want to say before you move on, Justin. Jim Hopper, I think was huge this season. I think it was interesting because at first I felt very disconnected from him, and I think he did that on purpose. And there was moments where he was kind of making some decisions that I was a bit confused by. But then when you put them into context with 11 and with the decisions that she then is starting to make, and just sort of seeing that go back and forth, the sequence with Hopper basically just being like, you didn't have a childhood, it was stolen from you. That was like one of the first tearjerker moments for sure in this season that really hit for me. And I think he did such a phenomenal.
Damn, really? Yeah. That was the beginning of this finale almost, right? Like at the beginning. Yeah. I had some tearjerker moments for sure, which, I think, again, you brought up Max and Lucas, like that whole moment with them on that table when she wakes up was pretty raw. And it was that definitely hit with some light tears. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Hopper was kind of, elusive, if you will, but then really kind of stepped into his comfort with this finale where he was like really front and center. The one person we haven't talked about, and I'm gonna bring her up, is 11. And this might be a bit of a hot take, but I wasn't particularly impressed with Millie Bobby Brown this season. I don't think the performance was bad. I think she did the job, but it felt like she was just kind of doing the job, right? And compared to earlier seasons where she absolutely carried the show. You know what I mean? Like, I remember season 4 just feeling like, holy fuck, like this is all about her. Given how central 11 is to the story, I probably expected more from her character and the intensity, especially in this final season. And instead, the performance just felt serviceable rather than just a standout in my mind. I will say that. And I think maybe that's to design so that it's like, give all the other characters the time to shine, but it's not so much. But for, this was kind of like, this was really more about like getting her to do the thing that she, I guess, was designed to do, and is just kill Vecna. Do you know what I mean? And I think that might have stunted her performance a little bit. And yeah, I'm not really sure. I have nothing against Millie Bobby Brown. I love her in everything she does. And like I said, in all the past seasons that she's ever done, it always has felt like she is central to the show and her character is central to this thing. But for this final season, it just felt like, again, it did feel like it was more, extroverted. It was more focused on the outside crew, and that's fine. But it, for it to be about her, the way we get there, I don't know. It wraps it up everything, but I just think her performance was serviceable.
I think it's interesting because Dr. K this season, who was played by
Linda Hamilton,
right? Huge get.
Sarah Connor.
It's interesting because I get it. We want to have more than just Vecna this season, right? We want to have some more foils for our crew to have to deal with. But she very much felt like bad guy bad. And I didn't get a ton from her. And it's interesting, I think Jamie Campbell Bower did a phenomenal job of helping to flesh out, Henry, and I think the writing was really good there to obviously do that. He's the big bad with a face, right? Obviously, the Mind Flayer, we can't really see the emotional core of the Mind Flayer. So we saw a different core, but I think with Dr. K, it was like bad guy bad. With 11, to your point, it did kind of feel like good girl good, or good guy good. You know what I mean?
Guy.
Like
yeah.
And so there was such a sort of a really hard push. I think the moments where Millie has to bring the heat, she brings the heat. I think
her moment with Mike and Hopper, like those moments, that was her great. Yeah,
absolutely, because they slowed down and it gave her the opportunity to hit them. I think she's great in the action sequences as well. But I'm rambling on, Darcy, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Millie Bobby Brown, I think, was inconsistent because I think she absolutely brought it for this finale, and I felt great watching those action scenes and those emotional moments really hit in the finale. But leading up to it throughout the season, like you were saying, Justin, it was just very lackluster, and she felt very kind of like just backseat almost. It was weird. But in terms of Dr. K, Nate, I was thinking my vibe was just like, this is just a setup for the mystery that's going to be left at large, basically, because they want to continue telling this story, but if we're closing off the Upside Down, how do they go about doing it? And it's like, well, this military that's obsessed with gaining power in whatever way they can find in this weird magical world that they have people with telekinesis and stuff like that. So I think it was meant to be just a faceless baddie. Like no matter what you do, the government will always try and get power for themselves. And it doesn't matter who's involved or whose face it is. It's going to be the same role, I guess. So I think I was okay with that. I'm hoping we get more with her in some fashion. I think either an origin, or like if we do get that senior setting one that they kind of teased earlier on in past conversations, it'd be cool to see her retired in a retirement home trying to convince everybody else around her that this stuff is real, or something along those lines. I think it'd be cool. I mean, I did like what we got. Just wish we could got more with her.
For sure. But I like the idea. Like I think you both kind of highlighted exactly what I think was wrong with Millie's performance, and the way you said it, Nate. Dr. K being a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. 11 was a hero for the sake of just being a hero, right? Because we've already built up this idea of her being a hero. And like to your point, Darcy, it's just Millie Bobby Brown's performance was more inconsistent than anything else. And that could have just been a reflection of it. But yeah, she brought in those action scenes. She brings it every time. Like, I'm not saying she doesn't. She just, it felt like this was like, this was the send off. She knew what she had to do, and she showed up and she delivered. That's sort of where I kind of felt with that performance.
I will say, huge disappointment. Where was Argyle? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where was Argyle the entire
California?
He had to get an eye somewhere, bro. Yeah.
He had to go home, man.
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah.
He's eating some pineapple pizza. It's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
We had reference to him. Nancy mentioned Flushing, Jonathan's pineapple, whatever.
Yes.
Like
okay.
Yes. That Argyle
That's
gave
straight.
him.
Oh,
So,
yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, outside of the weed references, we did get some awesome superhero action moments, which did lead to the death of Vecna, because it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen. But let's jump forward to that, because we knew it was going to happen. But let's start talking about what happens after that, because I'm sure when we come back to a little portion here where we're going to talk about some standout moments, we'll probably pick some moments from there. But I want to just kind of jump forward to this returning to normality for a second here as we kind of get to things. Now, one thing that this finale leans into very heavily is this idea of returning to normal life. And after extraordinary trauma, these kids are faced monsters and alternate dimensions, death and loss. And yet the ending asks us to believe that they can return to a version of normality. So there's this lovely epilogue where we get to see our characters graduate, and a very beautiful moment where we get to see them reunite in Mike's basement for a D&D campaign, just like how we were introduced to them. Did that land for you guys? Did that stick? Did that help with kind of closing things off for you? Nate, we'll start with you.
I mean, kudos to them for giving us a 45-minute epilogue. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is 10 years. 5 seasons is 5 seasons. Okay, sure. But we've seen other series end their final episode and feeling like we're just rushing to the finish, like so many different seasons do, as if it's not the end of a massive story that they're telling. So huge kudos to them. This absolutely worked for me. I think they found a way to give every single character who, like you said, Justin, was alive, and even maybe not, a moment an element to sort of set you in a place of awesome. I'm really happy that they're there, and I think it was really smart of them to kind of give us that little bit of extra. And I also just, again, we brought up Dustin earlier, but Dustin graduating and giving the speech and then doing the things that Eddie said he was going to do when he would graduate.
While we hear Iron Maiden too, like it was so good.
It's incredible. And then it was, and then to have his that girl that did not Stacy show up, and he's like, no.
Well, he wanted to, but then they were like,
they came up with a better plan. But I'm just saying, like, the fact that she's chasing him, absolutely phenomenal. Again, there was just so much like that. And to your point, Justin, the passing of the torch, if you will, right? The especially given Holly the heroic and seeing how that started, right? Did Holly have any interest in D&D before, her Mike gave her that little D&D piece? Maybe not, but to see that sequence sort of fully fleshed out, and it was just so wonderful full circle. Like, again, I'm not gonna spoil Lost, but like, my feeling on bookends, right? And it's just perfect.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed it too. Again, I was talking to Justin afterwards, and I just mentioned so much of this plot armor and this happy ending epilogue makes sense when you look at the movies that inspired the Duffer Brothers to start making their own movies. All these classic 80 films where the heroes go through so much stuff and still get their happy ending at the end. And it's like nothing can kill them or defeat them or any evil. They'll still triumph with the power of friendship. It's just, it makes sense with the tone of the stories that inspired them. And I loved it so much. And again, like you said, the way they pass the torch to the next generation is just so nice to see, especially that after that speech about different, like, outcasts and outsiders, jocks, nerds, bullies, everyone coming together in the darkest of times. And it's really cool. That's where it got me in the feels.
Holly nudging Derek's shoulder. I was like,
oh yeah. And then even just the original gang taking their moments to put their books back up on the shelf there. It was hammy and over the top, but it worked so well for me.
I think that's where it really kind of came together. Like I just said before we kind of got into this, like, we knew Vecna was going to die. We knew that 11 was going to succeed. We just didn't know how, right? And so we got there. We got there, and we got some really great moments there. But it was this really worked for me in the ending is this sort of epilogue. I loved how we just get to kind of take a breath and spend some time with this, those smaller, quieter moments, and sort of just checking in on the characters and the side characters as well. Granted, I didn't see Murray, or I think there was a reference to overbearing girlfriends from Robin, or overbearing partners. So maybe that was Vicky, but no Murray. So I'll let it fly. I'll let it fly because they still gave me a lot. But it was just like
didn't come back. Oh.
No,
sorry, go ahead.
But seeing where everyone landed, and letting the world kind of feel lived in again, after 18 months and just so much chaos, it was nice. But like I was saying, like, the moment that truly hit was returning to Mike's basement for one last campaign with the OG crew. Set up the exact same way that it was set up in the first episodes, shot on the sprinkler, shot on the house, shot on the basement, everyone's sitting in the same places. It's now years later, obviously, from the first time that we've met them. And it brings it back to where everything started. It just felt incredibly intentional, no monsters, no apocalypse, just friends around a table playing a game together again. That moment perfectly captured what Stranger Things has always been about: friendship, imagination, growing up, and I think for me, the quiet return to that normality and seeing this sort of emotional moment, because it's not just the fact of what they went through, it's obviously they're going on the next part of their their lives, university, college. There's that separation that's going to happen now. This is powerful, and I think it's more powerful than any big spectacle. It really landed in an emotional way for me, and I really did. Yeah, it hit. So I think that to me was like just the perfect sort of closure, to it. And I love the point that you made, Darcy, there about the fact that this is inspired by the coming of age movies from Amblin from the 80s. Characters don't die. You ever watch Goonies? None of those motherfuckers died, right? You know what I mean? Like, so like I'm just like, all I'm saying is like, if you're unhappy with the fact that death didn't seem to come and take one of these characters and make them feel lost, well, it kind of did for 11. We'll talk about that in a second. But the reality is that this is very much aligned, like you said, with what you would expect from this genre of storytelling. And I think it still fits really well. It's not about just killing someone off for the sake of it. It's about making the story and the journey matter. And it really does feel like in this moment when we're in Mike's basement, it mattered. It really did matter. But as I was saying, let's talk about 11, because really the story begins and ends with her. Her journey in the series has been about identity, power, choice, and sacrifice. And in this finale, she makes a sacrifice for her friends. But storyteller Mike has his own theory on exactly how things went down with 11, and maybe that she didn't die. So let's get into it. Do you feel 11 is dead, or is she alive?
I believe.
You believe?
I believe too, but
Let's
I believe
go.
because we did our due diligence. We went and looked back. We went and looked, didn't we, Justin?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but the only thing that really stood out to me, though, from reviewing it again, was Callie's last known location, like where we saw her last, was at the Hawkins lab, in the Upside Down, where the explosion originated. Because I too would like to believe that 11 is out living a life free, just like Hopper wanted her. Not with friends, but having a life. You know what I mean? Like she did the thing. She protected them, and now she's going to go have a life for herself, I believe. But I still wonder, like, was Callie there in the Hawkins lab? Because there's no way she was in that building. The only thing that I could really pick from watching that sequence again was when the explosion happened and where it happened, right? Because it happened right above the Hawkins lab building where she had been shot. So, as soon as she's dead, them powers are disappearing, right?
I mean, it could be again the whole projection thing, because she can enter minds as well. Maybe she was
sure
because her mind was elsewhere. Powers
but I did catch that flicker with the hand. That was very similar to when Dr. K caught the fact that Callie wasn't actually in that lab from her projecting. So, it is a range thing. I think that's the other thing that could also mean, is that like she was so far and out of range that there was that
like
that little
like a time
twitch.
delay almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was that twitch that was happening, but like, again, I'd like to believe it's in the Duffers' hands.
Well, can I bring up hands? Because, when somebody is holding someone trying to keep blood from gushing out of their fresh gunshot wound, their hands get covered in blood. And when 11 comes up onto the she gets up onto the roof,
in blood. Yeah.
Her hands are not covered in blood. She's not covered in blood, right? And not only that, but they move on quickly from that death. And obviously it's important to her, and obviously they have that little moment there, but it does feel a little quick, and to the point where after the episode ended, I reflected and looked back on my little moment of, Callie's dead. Huh. And her saying this was always how my story was supposed to end. It is interesting. How much time did they spend sitting there meditating before this whole thing sort of took off, right? They're sitting in that field, right? And having that conversation. How much of that didn't we get to see? Right. And so to that point of planning something like this, it would be very elaborate, very difficult to pull off. But these are psychically linked individuals. I have a hard time believing that they couldn't necessarily pull it off.
Well, I also, my big thing is going back and rewatching that scene. We were like, where was 11 when that truck was open? And she was right beside Mike. And as they pull Mike out, you see 11 get pulled out right after. And then from that point on, she's gone.
You lost her.
So like, if someone in that military knew what they were looking for a girl, any girl coming out of that vehicle, I'd have an iron grip on. So the fact that she was able to get away from military people pulling her out of a van something had to be going on there. And again, with Hopper clocking the kryptonite things on, how would 11 have had anything to do with that? So it really lines up.
And no nosebleed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was the biggest giveaway for a lot of people, was like there's no nosebleed, and the emphasis on the machines that were, giving off that power. But, to your point, Nate, like they definitely had a plan. They were both going to sacrifice themselves in the end and stay in the Upside Down because they're always going to be chased. But when the accident happened, was maybe that an illusion? When Callie gets shot, because you can see in the moment that Hopper was talking to her that she almost was like, wow, this guy really wants her to just have a life, right? And like maybe that changed her perspective. So in that moment, she's like flipped the switch on the plan, decided to fake her death and say, listen, this is what you're going to do, right? And like really run it down.
Believe we're dead, that's as good as us being
dead. It's exactly as being
again ever.
Exactly. Yeah, you just can't see them again. Ever again, but you can have that life, right? You can have that future. We can have that, because who's to say that she wasn't, either in the building, right? Like I was suggesting before, or to play devil's advocate, if that was all just an illusion and she got the fuck out of there, right? And she was somewhere closer.
Also, my whole thing too is the fact that when 11 and Mike are having their final conversation, she says, eventually you'll understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then we get that realization of Mike being, she's alive. Like she knew that he would get to the conclusion that she got out of there basically, and that she can never come back, but she's happy. And that's what he needs to convey to the rest of the group, is that she's alive and this is what she wanted, but she didn't sacrifice herself.
Oh, that's a good point, because that's what he ends up doing at the end, right?
Exactly.
He ends up making them feel better about that, right?
Yes, I wish I could have seen him going to Hopper and talking with Hopper about that, being like, she's getting the life you always wished for her type thing. I know she's out there. I think that'd be
he told
really
Hopper.
Cool.
I don't know if he would have told Hopper.
Oh, he's got to, man. Those people have been through hell and back, man. They're sharing everything together.
I can see them having a conversation. I mean, he's kind of like a son at this point, right? Like him and Jonathan are pretty much Hopper's kids by that, like at some point, I guess, right? They're definitely we're living
Mike
as a family.
No, Mike isn't.
Sorry, not Mike.
He's a son's best friend.
My bad.
Yeah.
But Mike,
but it
when
feels
the police call, Hopper knew exactly where to go to find Mike, so he's got a connection to this kid already. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. It's true. That's true. That's interesting. Yeah, I believe. That was a great moment too. That was a great moment. Them all saying that, and like just that idea of being able to cling on to a sense of hope that their friend isn't gone. It was super touching. It was really, really great, and I love that they left it open. Right, like I think that's just what the Duffer Brothers have done so well with this Stranger Things series, is that they really do leave things for the audience to discuss, and here we are discussing it.
We're not even done.
We're not even done, because you know what? We've talked about all the spicy stuff, the good shit. Let's talk about our favorite moments. Darcy, I'm going to start with you. Favorite moments from the season, from the finale, you name it. Let's hear it.
Again, I got while I want to talk about the action and stuff like that, I mean, some of the conversations we got this finale or this season have been fantastic. And again, I go back to the reconciliation between Steve and Dustin, when they just, what they've been through this season was so good. And to see them come together and be like, I'm just scared for you. I'm scared of losing you, and just bearing all to each other, and then reuniting that Henderson Harrington love that we fell in love with so many seasons ago. It was just really nice to see that come full circle. So again, that was a huge moment for me, and that was another thing that definitely hit me in the feels.
Nate, how about for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Darcy. I think the conversation between Will and Robin, and then leading up to just that moment, and getting to see Will as a little kid throughout that flashback, and just sort of his life, his experience. To your point, Justin, we kind of did see him. We didn't see him for a lot of the show. We didn't see him, he was pushed aside in a lot of moments. And so to kind of get to see that brought into context, I think, honestly, there were so many phenomenal moments. I have to bring up, they tied up that family. They tied up that poor family, Derek's family, and just Erica with was it cheesecake or cake or something like that?
Pie.
Pie.
Yeah.
It's just so unbelievably hilarious.
It's
It
why
was
I
just the
loved her.
line delivery
It's
of I told you to eat your
Eat
damn pie.
and she's just so on the nose. But that gave us Derek, obviously, as you mentioned, one of the season highlights of or sorry, series no season highlights. You know, that was absolutely great. I think you're both right. There's a lot of great conversational moments that are so insightful, that are really opening for characters. I mentioned Lucas and Max upon her waking up from the coma. You mentioned Robin and Will, so that he can kind of unlock that power. It's the sort of guidance that he needed in that moment to kind of in that moment to kind of go the distance and become what he has. Elle and Mike, Hopper and Elle, you know, two instances where it's Hopper to Elle and then now Elle to Hopper. Like, they took the time through this season to give every character a moment of connection. Fucking Jonathan and Steve going from enemies to friends, you know what I mean? And like,
I mean, even the very confusing. I mean, it was confusing at me at first, and then I sat with it. But the breakup sequence, right, between Nancy and Jonathan, I thought
it was a mutual breakup thing, right?
Right?
Like, it wasn't a traditional like, I don't want to be with you. It was like, we're not right for each other right now. You know what I mean? And maybe we never will be. But you know, the like he says to Steve, it's like, our problems had nothing to do with Steve, right? Like, it had nothing to do with you. And that's what it always seemed to be about, sort of in Jonathan's mind. So to have that moment though between two people that were kind of like, you know, in part of a love triangle, as you were talking about, it was nice. It was nice to see them kind of reconcile their differences and maybe say like, yeah, you know what, we don't really like each other, but we don't want to see each other have anything bad happen to each other. So
they went through life. They fought like demogorgons for years together. I don't think those bonds will ever be broken.
I also love that it wasn't just 80s references that we were getting. We got references to, like, I think one of my favorite sort of moments was the demo dogs. We got the demo dogs back again, and it felt very Jurassic Park, right? The raptors, jumping up, and just the whole taking out the laundry sequence was so good. I think there were some great lines. I think "Suck My Fat One" is fantastic. I think Erica called Vecna a pussy at one point, which was awesome. And just like, even just little things like "You die, I die, you die, I die." There was some really, really phenomenal like lines to be had throughout. I think the biggest moment, and Justin, we kind of already we talked about a lot of really great moments leading up to our great moment segment, so we kind of already talked about some of my faves, but we have to come back to, if it's okay, the "you fucked with the wrong family." I think Joyce having that moment, even just walking up, I was like, I brought up the fact that Barb didn't come back. She was. We actually did visually see Barb in the final moments of like the first flashback that Nancy experiences, right? And so getting to see those flashbacks, getting to just have that context, and seeing how little all of these people, all these children were so small, going through some of these flashbacks to seeing them to now. It just puts into context a decade's worth of storytelling in such a moving moment. Dude, I think that was probably the biggest highlight for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the icing on the cake, to be completely honest. To have Joyce again. I was like, where the fuck is Joyce the entire time? And
she was just holding that axe, waiting. She was ready.
And then when she was with Will, I was like, okay, I got a point of reference. I know where she is now. But then when she walked in, I was like, okay, this is why she came here, right? And when she had that axe and she hacked at it, and I just love, obviously it wasn't going to be one swing and she got the head off, right? But as that axe chops, as she goes at it, we're cutting to each character. We're seeing their loss, their grief, what they've been through over, yes, it's a decade of stories, but it's actually what, like 3 or 4 years of
it's
actual,
like 4 or 5
for their lives.
Their lives. And yes, it's incredible to see how small and now grown up they are. But it was just a way to really kind of, again, almost signify what they were there for and why this needed to happen, right? And because obviously killing is not, not the ideal thing, but when it's a demon like that is ripping through people's minds and is warping reality and changing things and haunting people, it's something outside of anything that can be really comprehensible. So therefore those actions are thing. And I think just seeing that through the character's eyes and those moments of who they've lost, it really does hit home why they were there.
Henry was lost, right? Henry was lost. Will talked to him and he was lost. Henry was dead.
And I loved that little moment too,
I was going to say that was a fantastic part.
Because it really does highlight that the demeanor of Henry is actually not a reflection of Henry, it's a reflection of the mind flare.
Yeah.
Because that there was this ongoing theory that Henry had taken over Billy because of the body language and the demeanor in which Billy was presenting himself that felt so similar to Henry. But in my mind now, I'm thinking, well, maybe it wasn't Henry, it was the mind flare, right? It was the mind flare taking over Billy's mind and his body, and that's the representation. So this character that we saw through Henry, and this this demonized version, I think that's more of a reflection of who the mind flare is his personality replicated in a human form, if that makes sense. If that's just a little like thing that I was kind of plucking at, if you will, because when we see that moment where Will is tapping into Henry and he's like, go away, like his demeanor changes, his voice changes, everything about him changes. He's like a little boy, like he's innocent, like he's hurt. And then it's when he starts to say, I let him in, that he switches back and he lets the mind flare in, right? So I don't know, observational, I don't know, but it was pretty cool. But yeah, it's to save an F-bomb for Joyce Myers, well done. Well done. I will say the action scenes were also great. The action scene, that superhero shot of Elle attacking that kaiju
flying up,
bro, that's fucking epic.
Oh,
yeah, and like just flying, and like the way the camera angle was like directly behind her, off to the side,
follow her in, then cut to the
and
landing,
then just and then cuts to the landing. I was like, okay, that hits. You could imagine how like that would have hit in the theater. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh my God,
watching it in a movie theater,
or the controlling the soldier.
Yeah,
lift the gun up. And,
oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think the action moments are phenomenal, and then I do want to just, if I can, throw in a couple more soggy cry moments. I think Hopper, a tired, grumpy, stubborn old man who loves you very much. I was like, oh shit. I started getting hit by that when he's proposing and they start playing At Last, and so beautiful. And then, dude, I'm never gonna hear Purple Rain the same ever again. I think that moment, and we brought up Millie's performance. I also want to shout out Finn Wolfhard as Mike in that moment as well. Absolutely riveting stuff, and just seeing how much they love each other. And that's the first time that apparently that song has been used in a TV show, apparently, according to
correct
sources. Yeah. So yeah, that's phenomenal. Like the fact that they were able to, again, it just sort of speaks to the idea of
they used
how important. Yeah, no, for sure. But just again, the Purple Rain was how important these moments are, and they know that they're so important that they're like, we can't just use any old song. We're going to use this specific song, and just, it's so good. It really hit.
Awesome. Well, I think we've talked a lot about this final season and this series finale. So naturally, it's time that we do something a little more structured for our final thoughts. I think because this season sort of demands it. I would love us to separate the final season as a whole from the series finale itself, because for a lot of people, I think those two will be very different conversations. Do you know what I mean? This will be, how was the whole season, and how was the series finale? So taking everything into account, the pacing, the scale, everything we talked about, the character arcs, the weight of the ending and the massive series, on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you guys land on this final season?
Yeah, I mean, this final season, like you said, uh, we love where we ended up, but how we got there maybe could have been a bit more fleshed out or smoother in terms of
Mhm.
pacing. I don't know. Again, the fact that we've this season is a culmination of so much. It's hard to try and separate it from the series overall. But I think it really was a really nice closure to these characters' arcs that we spent the
Mhm.
last 10 years, getting invested in, and the 5 years of their time basically. I think it makes sense to where they end up, and the journey, how do we get there, especially in volume 2 of season 5, maybe wasn't the most thrilling or well paced. I still like the outcomes that we got from this whole thing. So I'll be giving this season 4 out of 5.
Nate, how about for yourself? What are your final thoughts on rating for the final season?
Yeah, I think like we've been saying, it was messy. There were moments that felt repetitive, bloated. There's a lot of exposition, a lot of planning, a lot of epiphanies. And yeah, it just there were just a few moments that sort of took me out in where I was like, wait, did we just see this? No, we didn't. This is a different thing. um, but that said, I think episode 4 and this finale were strong enough that I enjoyed all the in between just enough. I actually think that episode 4 and the finale were so good. They're some of the best episodes of the series. And I actually think that they were so good that we could have maybe taken a few important moments from the other 6 episodes, tied them on, and just done 2 or 3 episodes for this sort of final go. But again, by no means did I not enjoy those other episodes quite a bit. I think everyone, no matter where your sort of thoughts fall in terms of how you rank your seasons of Stranger Things, everyone's least favorite season of this show is still fantastic, enjoyable, really well made TV. And so I think that's definitely a kudos to the Duffers and to everyone behind this series. I think there were some standout moments. I loved how they gave every fan of this series something to check off their checklist for this season. There was just, whether you're looking for, answers to mysteries, relationships moving forward in the right ways, 80s needle drops, excellent action sequences. I think the way that they respected every viewer and gave everyone everything they wanted, or at least it feels that way, at least to me. I really enjoyed it. So I think even though I enjoyed the finale more than this season as a whole, I'm still going to give this season a 4 out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the final season of Stranger Things lands at a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect. There
Yeah.
are pacing issues, structural bumps, and moments that feel more functional than emotional. But I really appreciate where we ended up. This season had an enormous task in front of it, and while not every swing connected, the intent was always clear. It aimed big, it respected the journey, and ultimately it delivered a finale that felt earned. By the time the credits rolled, I felt satisfied emotionally. I felt grateful for the ride, and for a show of this scale, that matters. More than perfection in a lot of ways. But yes, we're gonna go back around this table. We're gonna give our thoughts on the series finale. Let's zoom in. You know, Forget the whole season for a second, just the finale episode itself, the ending, the resolution, the final moments we get with these characters on a scale of 1 to 5. How did the series finale land for you, Darcy?
Well, again, talking about how satisfying it is to see where these characters ended up and see them finally get their happy ending, a la those 80s Amblin coming of age movies that inspired this story. It worked for me really well. Again, I think it made the journey that we've been on so worth it, or seem like made this feel so worth it, because we've been through so much with these characters, and because that they all made it out. It's nice. It just made me feel good. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. I like me a sappy, nice bow and everything. And like Nate was saying, the fact that it ends where it begins, at the table, kind of passing the torch to the next generation of kids playing D&D. It's really cool. And I also, while I'm talking about D&D, I do not buy into the fact that because we saw a rule book at the end for the credits, it means that this was all made up. That is just, if anything, that's what Mike wrote and the way he's telling his friend's story is in the format of a game book. I don't buy that it was a lie. That happened.
No.
Darcy, I was just gonna say I thought that he was that moment of him writing, he was gonna turn like a page and it was gonna say Stranger Things, a book by, you know what I mean? And he was gonna be the writer of Stranger Things. But
like Frodo Baggins?
Like Frodo Baggins. I do really like, though, Darcy, I do love the idea that he's writing his own campaign book. That I never even thought of that. That is super cool. And I do want a copy of that book in real life. I'm sure they're already printing it. Please make it. I want it. I know there's other Stranger Things campaigns out there, but no, for sure. Yeah, it was a 5 out of 5 for sure. 100% 5 out of 5. It reminded me a lot of the finale of Friends, right, where we got like so many moments of just going back to see flashbacks of where we've come from. They've all grown so much, and I think this finale shows us, it goes to the extra lengths to not just show us where they've come from, what they went through in this sequence, in these final moments, but then where they're kind of going as well. I adore the decision to leave things open regarding 11, even though I believe, and we clarified that we believe that she is alive. I think it's so cool because, we keep bringing up Dungeons and Dragons, but it allows the viewers to come to their own conclusions, like in a campaign of Dungeons and Dragons. And I just think that's so perfect. It's so smart of the Duffers to do it that way. And I understand that might not be appreciated by everyone. I know some people, who they want answers. They want to know what is the actual thing. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Hopefully this finale checked off different boxes for you in different ways. But I think this episode was so beautiful. The way it ended was beautiful. I think the episode in its own was paced perfectly to cover this massive cast of characters appropriately. They stuck the landing. I look forward to whatever the Duffers have planned for whatever spin-offs come from this story. I am sad to see this series end, but I don't think this is the end of Stranger Things by far. I think we will eventually, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, we get to see, one of these characters come back as a legacy character or what have you, I'm sure. But
I mean, we are getting animated versions of these characters.
We are getting animated versions. There's supposedly another live action series is in the works with the Duffers. I know that there's like originally Montauk was like the thought of what this series was going to be. Hopper's moving there apparently, or they're all moving. Ultimately, let me give you my score and then we can keep going here. But I'm going to give the finale a 5 out of 5 for sure. Sorry.
Yeah, you did off the top, so you
did. Yeah, you started with your score.
I like to start and end in the same way, just like this finale.
Oh, nice. You're a bookender. Well, I'm going to start by saying the series finale of Stranger Things is a 5 out of 5 for me as well. I think, it delivers exactly what a finale of this magnitude should be. It, emotionally, there's emotional closure, there's thematic payoffs. The moments that feel both epic and deeply personal they all hit. It honors where these characters started, respects how far they've come, and gives the story room to breathe in its final moments with the idea of, well, what happened to 11? A huge credit to the Duffer Brothers for sticking the landing. I think ending a series this beloved is no easy task for sure. And, but they managed to balance spectacle, heart, and nostalgia in a way that felt confident and earned. And I think by choosing emotion over excess when it matters most, I think that they knew how to balance that. The finale reminded me why I fell in love with the show in the first place. It's a rare ending that feels thoughtful, intentional, and honestly just deeply satisfying to see these characters move on and to see them actually have a life outside of the adventures that they've had in the Upside Down. So yeah, 5 out of 5. Bookended. There you go. Awesome. Well, that is it for our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Stranger Things Season 5. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to let us know how much you loved us bantering about all the juicy details from this, well, you can do so by reaching out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter at geekcentricyt and on Instagram and TikTok at wearegeekcentric. Keeping it all Stranger Things focused. We do have 2 interviews out now, available on our podcast feed as well as on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric. Nate had the chance to sit down with Sadie Sink and Jamie Campbell Bauer for a lovely discussion. And I had the chance to sit down with the Duffer Bros. Again, that is also out for you to enjoy. As we mentioned, this is our first episode of 2026. So, you can go back and listen to a bunch of stuff that from 2025 if you're feeling nostalgic about the year that was. But we have some things to look forward to, such as our annual Geek Back, where we will break down our favorite movies, TV shows, games, talked about collectibles or things that we've purchased, a variety of things, but it's different. It's not going to be like a top 5 or like a top 10 of these things where it's like lengthy. It's like, no, y'all bring one thing to the table that
it's still going to be lengthy, but yeah.
It's still be lengthy, but it's still going to be lengthy.
We'll try to be more concise than the finale of Stranger Things.
Yeah, there's for sure here who like to talk a lot.
For sure,
another person.
I like to talk about one thing, but like I'm gonna respect it. Honorable mentions are there. But anyways, you have that to look forward to. Award season is around the corner. So we're probably going to be doing some more coverage for that. As always, we're going to have reviews. We're going to have interviews, so much more. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Nate, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me in the Upside Down for today's spoiler-filled discussion and review. And as we say,
I'm happy to be right side up. Love ya.
Laters.
Peace.